Good evening, viewers. Thank you for joining us again for another live episode of COVIDCASTJA. Tonight, you're in for a fantastic, energetic discussion as we're talking about the boardroom and the vehicle of success, which is corporate governance. We're going to talk about doing things the right way, putting yourself and your business in a position that you're poised to seize opportunities, that you're poised for sustainability, that you are poised to be listed, and you're poised for eventual amazing, tremendous success. So this evening, we're going to be joined by three amazing women: Camille, Facey, Kimala, Bennett, and Greta Boggs. But just to remind you, did you get our weekly memo? This week, we have a great memo that gives you great tips on forming your board and some essential points on corporate governance. If you have not received your memo, email us right now at sme@psoj.org. Now, if you notice, we are, I think, at episode 28, which means that you have missed 27 memos, because for each episode, we create a memo that gives you a snapshot of the things that we're discussing. And we recognize, that people learn in different ways. Some people have to read, some people want to view, some people want both things. So we provide it all. In addition, we encourage you to visit smallbusinessportal.com. This is an essential resource for businesses, providing you with business tips on funding, getting your finance, setting up your boards, everything that you can think of. And we really look forward to your feedback. Please visit smallbusinessportal.com. Tell us what you think about it. Tell us any additional information that you want to see on smallbusinessportal.com. As you can see, I'm very excited to talk about corporate governance. And, it's one of those topics that people are like, that's for the compliance people, the lawyer, them, the accountants. But what if we were to switch our mindsets and ask ourselves the question, isn't it important for my business to have as a part of its DNA doing things the right way? And doing things the right way because I want to always be in a position to seize any opportunity that comes up. Today, we'll hear about a business that started as a micro business and is now listed on the Junior Stock Exchange. So the vision that you have for your business will be made possible with good corporate governance. So we're going to start out our discussion with a lady, Camille Facey. She's an attorney at law and managing partner of Facey Law. Let me just tell you though, she is a seasoned corporate secretary. Added to that, she's a seasoned board member of not just public boards, but of private boards. She is now in private practice, but she has spent a significant number of years in corporate practice as in-house counsel. So Camille has over 37 years of experience. And you're looking at this lady and saying to yourself, 37 years of experience, how is that possible? Because that young lady that you're looking at. So she uses this to her advantage as managing partner of Facey Law, and her practice is focused in the areas of company and commercial law, corporate governance, telecoms, banking, conveyancing, trust, and estates. Before Facey Law, she spent 10 years as senior vice president and later as a regional vice president with responsibility for legal, regulatory, and public policy in Jamaica and the Northern Caribbean at Cable and Wireless Jamaica. In addition to her legal expertise, I can attest to Camille's world-class business acumen. So we could not have a better person to start out our show. Camille, how are you? You're on mute.
After that introduction, I can't be anything but great. Thank you.
So Camille, we talk about corporate governance a lot, and it's just something that is very natural for us when we think about business. And we're always thinking about the right ways to do things. What are the checklists for success? And before we get into any other discussion, I think we just need to set the stage. When we're talking about corporate governance, for our business people watching, what does that really mean? What does that entail?
So, the classic definition is corporate governance is the means by which entities are directed and controlled. But let's move from the
Okay.
locus classicus to what it really means. As a business person, especially as a small business person, you know that your focus is on producing that product, finding the market, dealing with an employee, dealing with a customer. So you are handling the day-to-day operations. What corporate governance does is it allows another layer, a layer that is a setback, that can look at the business holistically, look at strategic objectives, foresighting, where should it be going, look at the accountability issues. What are the things you ought to be doing? Hold you as that CEO accountable so that you can ensure that you are staying on track. So that's what we mean by directing and controlling.
Okay, so let's start with a small business, pretty much a one-man setup. Company has been registered, and it's really you operating the business. Now, when I speak to a lot of small businesses, they're like, I mean, look at my size. What corporate governance do you expect me to have at my size? As a micro business, what are some of the essential things that a micro or a small business needs to be considering in terms of its governance structure, how it is directed and controlled, especially if it's just that one person really that's doing most of the work?
Okay. And it is the case for many of our small businesses that it is that one person company. And fabulous as you are and talented as you are, you don't have every skill that your business is going to need. Running a company is almost like a team job rather than an individual job, because every company is affected by laws. Every company has to keep financial statements. If you're not keeping financial statements, you're not in business. You're in something else. So, whereas you may have that operational expertise, there are other aspects to the business that when you have other persons who can bring those competencies to your business, you can only do better. And that is what having a board does. It allows you to garner these other types of expertise and have that expertise focused on your business. And it will help you to think about things you are not thinking about. Have you filed your returns, meaning with the company's office, so that your business is compliant? You appointed a secretary. Have you told the company's office that you have appointed a secretary? Basic things like that. Or with your financial statements. Yes, maybe you're not making all that much now, but I can tell you it's a lot better to start doing those financial statements from day one than 5 years' time trying to go back to find all the receipts and all the bills so you can put together financial statements, so you can have audited accounts that you can use to get a job that you are applying for, or something, a project that you are trying to win, a contract that you need.
Yeah. And I'm glad how you framed the conversation where you said it's filing your returns with the company's office, but also ensuring that you have your financial statements done, and regardless of the size of your business. Because I think sometimes we forget even the whole concept of having financial statements is a part of the right way of doing business. You also touched on having a board. Now, sometimes we have a conversation about a board of advisors versus a board of directors. When is it appropriate to have a board of advisors, and when do you grant the board of directors?
So once you incorporate that company, the law requires that you have a board of directors. Maybe the board is just one, because you can have one director, but you have to have a secretary as well. And that's because the secretary has specific functions that she or he must carry out. Now, many people for their first boards, they will ask a relative to join them, but a relative who has certain skills, maybe skills in marketing, maybe skills in finance, or they have skills in exporting, and you want to tap that export market. So you look to see who are those persons who are willing to work with me to help me grow this business. Persons who do not wish a board of directors. So, okay, say you're even incorporated. You could decide that I'm the only formal director who has been notified to the company's office, but I'm going to invite a group of people with this type of expertise that I need to be my advisors. And so they would run parallel, and they would be the ones who would be helping to give you that guidance and the other alternative thoughts that can so help you to grow your business. Another thing with having a real board, though, is that when you're really running it properly, you as that business owner, you're holding yourself accountable to that board, So you're going to go before those people every quarter, say, and you're going to go through the financial statements, and they're going to say, all right, and did you need to buy, all right, we're going to go fancy. Did you need to buy a Mercedes-Benz? Couldn't a RAV4 have done just as well? Could the company really afford that? In other words, it is people who bring their skills and their perspective to the running of your business and who can help you succeed and grow that business.
Okay. So Camille, I think one of the things too, when you have a small business, sometimes we have a way where we say, want nobody bother me and ask for no whole prospect. And I delve into which kind of car may I use the company money to buy and stuff. They don't know how hard me working in the business. Now, if you take that kind of position, because sometimes we don't want nobody delve into we business. What advice would you be giving to persons who are like, want nobody in a me business?
Don't bother come to my bank for no loan. If you are going to be eating out the business money that should be there to grow the business, or when you want to get additional capital, because there comes a point very often where you now have opportunities that you can only grasp if you get help. And that help can come either through capital from others, or it can come through loans. Once you are accessing funding from anybody else, and even sometimes grant funding as well, people are going to be in your business. They're going to want to know how that money is being used. So it's best to get set up from the outset where you have proper accounting, where your decision making is the decision making that's in the best interest of the company. Because remember that directors are there to look out for the best interests of the company, to make sure that what you're doing will allow that company to reach the point that it ought to reach. But yes, what you've described is very much how we are in Jamaica. We don't want anybody in our business. So stay as a stole trader. You and the taxman, one can look at what you're doing and how you're spending your money.
Exactly.
So that's another thing. Taxes, yes.
Exactly. So if we have a mindset that we will hold ourselves accountable, what are some of the key skill sets that we would want as a small business to include in an advisory board? Or if we're actually setting up a full board, what are some of the key skill sets that we would want to have on that board?
You definitely want financial. Legal is extremely helpful, because every business is governed by laws and things are going to happen. If it is that it's an employee who bucks their toe, or a customer who comes in and slips on the banana peel, or whatever it is, the car, you have a contract dispute. you and somebody are not interpreting your particular contract the same way. You have bad debtors. So finance, legal, and these days IT, if you don't have that skill set, that's usually good. And persons who can give you advice on your particular business, your kind of business, people who have the expertise in that line, those would be very useful. You don't need more than about 3 or 4 people.
That are, and providing you with useful guidance. Now, when, as you're trying to run the business, we're in the middle of COVID, people are trying to pivot their business. And in many instances as business people, we say to ourselves, I don't have any time for anything additional. Now, can you kind of describe for us the difference having a right way structure, having proper governance, filing your documents on time, how that actually is a vehicle to the eventual success of the business?
Yeah, so the first thing is your peace of mind. It is very useful to know that you are doing things correctly. I don't want my money or my liberty in anybody else's hands but my own. So when you don't do things right the first time, there are penalties, and I am not inclined to hand my money over like that. So your board, one of the things the board will do is the board will force you to come and say to them, oh, this is what I've done for the quarter. Okay, license was expiring. I applied to renew it on time. It forces you as that person who is so, involved in the business to step back. And then the board is going to say, what if this happened? Have you thought about how you will deal with this? So they will begin to make you think about contingencies. Or they will come to you and they will say, I'm aware of this opportunity. Have you pursued it? I know this person. You could talk to them.
Yes.
So
the doors.
When you at the doors, when you are there battling every day to keep that business going, you are just in the weeds. This helps you to step back and look at what is possible, where you can go.
So Camille, you are a very experienced board member on different types of board. So we can't leave today because I know some viewers would have been asked to sit on boards and they're asking themselves the question, if I'm asked to actually be a board member, what are some of my key roles and responsibilities, and how do I really determine if I want to sit on somebody's board?
The first thing you do is ask for the financial statements, because there are a few instances where directors will have personal liability. And one of those instances is where you allow a company that is insolvent to trade. So you need to make sure that the entity is solvent. The other thing that you want to look at is the person that is, or the company, a serious company, because you're going to be putting your time into this. So you're going to want to know that it's a company that wants to grow, that wants to, do well and hopefully eventually end up being a publicly traded company, or even if they don't go on the stock market, a company that is a strong Jamaican company. That's why we start businesses, to make money. We don't start them to stay small. So you're going to look at the person who is inviting you to make sure that that person is trustworthy. Directors also have responsibility where statutories and those obligations are not paid. So if you're inviting me to your board, you better believe that every quarter you're coming and showing me your little certificate that says that you have paid to the government what you have to pay. And there is no point trying to avoid it and being under the radar. There was a time that could happen, but tax admin has got way different to how it used to be. So you may as well do it from the start. In the beginning, you're not making any money, so you're not paying too much, if anything at all. Plus, there are limits, and we have
Yes.
much better arrangements now. No more declaration of assets tax, so things are much better for small business. No more minimum business tax, which apply to you whether or not you are a company or an individual. Because remember, individuals still have to pay the taxes. And the advantage of being a company is that should you get sued, if you are sued and you are an entity, then all that is at risk would be the assets of the company. Whereas if you are sued and you are not incorporated, then your house and your car and everything you own could be exposed in that particular litigation. So that's a real advantage to incorporating. The disadvantage, which you referred to, that some people think, is that you have to comply with certain things like the filings at the company's office, but it's really not that hard to do once you know what you are to do. And I think the benefits really outweigh the negatives of it. Plus, of course, if you want to go public, you have to be incorporated.
Exactly. I'm seeing a comment here from Christopher Record. Hi, Chris. Chris says, sadly, many persons being asked to sit on boards don't understand financial statements, which is very true. So, Camille, before we leave, because we could chat all evening, two things I want to wrap up with. You just touched on the point of incorporating, and I need you to just remind our viewers the benefits of actually formalizing their business.
Right. So, as I mentioned, when you are not incorporated, if anything goes wrong and you are sued, then you are sued in your personal capacity. So all your assets, say
what that means is,
all right. So say you have your house and your car and your stock portfolio or whatever it is you have. If something happens, right, like you're making lunches and something happens to the food and somebody decides that they're going to sue you, you are sued as Rochelle Cameron personally. And in order to pay that debt, if you don't have enough money, that nice painting behind you and all your fancy stuff, those can be sold to pay the court judgment if a judgment is awarded against you. When you are incorporated, then all that is at risk would be the assets of the company. So if something happens and the company is sued, then you can't pay out more than the company has. And so your personal assets are ring-fenced, so to speak, unless you were fraudulent, and that's a whole different level that we're not dealing with.
Yeah.
So that's one of the first things that is a benefit and something that you seriously have to consider. In addition, if you're going to ever invite anybody else into your business, then they are going to want to have a few little shares, unless it's a loan. And the only way you can do that is, again, if you are incorporated. So you could say, all right, you're giving me some capital, I'm giving you 10% of the shares in this business.
Exactly.
So if you are bringing persons into the business and it's not just you as a one-man person, then incorporation is definitely something that you have to think about.
Okay. So, Camille, as someone who has done all of these various roles, you have been in charge of legal for huge companies. You, as a corporate secretary, as a board member, what are some of the, what would you like to leave our audience with, that seed you want to plant for corporate governance with our audience?
I would like to say that it's about doing things the right way. And if you don't build your business on that strong foundation of doing things the correct way, you are setting yourself up for problems later on. It's so much easier to do things right from the outset than to have to go back years later sometimes and try to fix it. So that would be what I would say to our listeners. Just get it right from the outset and learn what's to be done, and it's manageable.
And do it, yes. So, Camille, thank you very much for joining us for this episode of COVIDCASTJA. If our viewers want to find you, where do they find Camille Facey?
Well, our website is www.faceylaw.com. We're on the towers in New Kingston, 10th floor of the towers, New 25 Dominica Drive. And our telephone number is 876-920-1000. But
Oh, that's easy.
it's a nice number, 920-1000. www.faceylaw.
Okay.
Faceylaw.com. That's easy too.
That's easy too. Thank you very much for joining us, Camille. We're looking forward to having you back on COVIDCASTJA. Wow, so we've set the stage on just some of the basic things for us to consider with corporate governance. And I know some of you are saying to yourselves, I hear you, Rochelle, with all of this, and I hear Camille talking about doing things the right way. But I'm a little business, and I'm really just trying to cut and go through. And yes, one day I would really love to be listed on the exchange, but right now I'm just trying to stay afloat. And I think it is very important that you hear from a business that actually started out as a micro business and has actually grown to be listed on our junior stock exchange. So we're going to be joined now by Chief Executive of the lab, Kimala Bennett. Now, Kimala is entrepreneur. She is filmmaker. She's strategist. She's creative thinker. She's author. I mean, I could spend all night with adjectives listing the various things that she is. But she has really created a name for herself and garnered a reputation for being multifaceted and uncompromising in the pursuit of higher standard in her own right and within marketing and content creation. She's known as an entrepreneurial visionary who founded the groundbreaking advertising and production company, the Limnads and Bards, otherwise called the Lab. So for over 11 years, the lab has created lasting campaigns throughout the Caribbean and Latin America. She's a trained filmmaker, by the way, so she has hands-on experience in the business that she's in. But she has moved from just being a creative, because a lot of us think I'm just a creative, and she is a business woman. Now, for those of you who have wondered, she has actually been involved in videos for Rihanna and for Drake. She's founder of spin-off companies such as Create Space. And very importantly, out of a passion for guiding and nurturing young entrepreneurs, Kimala has published 3 manuals for Caribbean entrepreneurs. One is Starting a Business in Jamaica, the Young Entrepreneur's Handbook, and Let's Talk Money. So, we are in for a very engaging conversation with Kimala. Now, Kimala, I've always been fascinated at the journey of the lab and your own journey through business. And I think it is very important for our viewers to understand the beginnings of the lab and what were some of your right way of doing things to get you to listed. Tell us about that journey.
So, the lab literally started with 20,000 Jamaican dollars. So when you're talking about small business, we're talking about small business and a Mac computer. I know it sounds a little cliche, but it actually happened. Myself and Melissa Llewellyn started it. So we started as the production lab, and lab meant Llewellyn and Bennett. And at the time, I was the film director and Melissa was a producer. But having come from it was a production company from the States, I knew exactly what I wanted to build in Jamaica. And I also had a number of companies locally that I had, as benchmarks. And doing things the right way for me straight off the bat had to do with my financials. I had financials before I actually knew how to read financials, audited financials. I remember saying, I was looking back through some old emails that Melissa and I would have these board meetings, which would just be myself and Melissa. We started as a partnership, but then we decided to move to being a limited liability company. And, one of the things was we always looked at what we wanted to become, and that's how we operated. So we were not operating in the now. So to say, okay, well, we're a small company. We were always thinking, okay, but that's not what we want to be. And as a result of that, that kind of guided how we did things. I remember distinctly, we started paying our crew by check very early in the business. And I mean, they were not very happy about that, because you have to remember that we started in music video production, and that was somewhat of an informal industry, creative industries, freelance, driven, and persons were accustomed to getting paid at the end of the shoot. And I was like, absolutely not. We need to now have a bank account. We need to, have proper reconciliation, and then move to doing our accounts properly, paying ourselves, paying our taxes, which was extremely important to me as well, being compliant, and ensuring now that we had these financial statements. So it's funny because when we were actually looking to purchase a property, I remember a couple of years ago, the banker said to me, they've never seen this before. A small business having all of this documentation as they're asking. It wasn't like, oh, let me have to go do that, or let me. So because we had the financial statements way before, even before we really truly understood them. Understand them now, but back then, it was more about the process of doing things the right way.
So you always had a vision of where you wanted the business to go. And even without fully understanding your financial statements at the get-go, you always knew that there were some right steps. As a business person, mentoring other small businesses now, what are some of the key things? I mean, people are going through COVID and they're just like, I can't take on any other thought now. What are some of the things you would like to advise them, notwithstanding COVID, to ensure that they're doing right now?
So, earlier we were talking about actually setting up an advisory board. That is something that we did, pretty early out. My advisory board had Douglas Linder, who actually now sits on the board, because for me, Douglas was a serial entrepreneur. He was also very big on process innovation. And he also guided myself and Melissa a lot in our earlier stages in terms of from a business perspective. We had Claude Duncan, who was at Jampro at the time, who was selling Jamaica, and we wanted to understand how were we going to position this company, to be on this global stage. And Mariam McIntosh Robinson at the time as well, who dealt more so with the financial. It is very important to have persons hold you accountable. And, I didn't have to have an advisory board at that time, but I wanted to get into that practice of having my financials ready, even though we audited, we had, 1 year, we didn't do it quarterly, but I had management reports. I wanted to be able to go to the board to say, okay, these are my plans. This is the bigger strategy. This is the vision of the company. And for them to pop my balloons, essentially. I liked the idea of person telling me no and challenging me and saying, we'll come again, please, because that has happened before. If you do that, that's going to happen. And I think a lot of times when we're business owners, we say, I don't want nobody to talk to me. As you say, we don't want nobody in your business. I was the total opposite, and I'm still that opposite, because I want you in my business. I want to hear all the different perspectives, all the different, just the knowledge that you may have, because no matter what business you're in, the principles of business are the same. And exactly. I think that is very important for small businesses. No, I think we also have to look at what do you want to be those processes, and what do you want to be, in the DNA of your company. What is it that you want the culture to be? What is it that you want to stand for? Because at the end of the day, it really is, as I know corporate governance sounds like a very big and heavy word, but it really is doing the right thing by setting up your framework and your processes and your structures to say, okay, this is how we operate, and this is the right way to do this. So you have the areas of in terms of from a legal standpoint that you have to abide by. Of course, you must pay your taxes and you must be compliant there. But then there are some things that you must ensure that you're doing, whether it be, keeping your word or honoring your contracts, paying your employees and paying their taxes as well. So there are a lot of things that we need to say, okay, is this the right thing to do? And if you have to be hiding something and shady chances are it's not the right thing. So it's better to do it early out because it makes the process of growth that much easier. And you are able to attract the talent that you need as well as the advisors that you want in your corner.
So Kimala, when our viewers hear, some of the persons that you would have had on your advisory board, and some people are said to them, so Kimala, could I get some whole Tapinaris people? How did she approach those people? How am I going to approach those people? I don't know no Tapinaris people. How do I approach them? And what is it about my business that will cause them to say, I will want to sit on your advisory board, or I'll even want to sit on your board of directors?
So persistence is key. Let's just say that. I remember Claude told me no at first, and he told me no the second time because he was busy. But I think it's important to not be too pushy, but to sell the vision of the company. You have to let people know that you're serious about what you're doing. So not because you don't know someone. Chances are you know someone who knows someone. LinkedIn is a beautiful place, and I find that persons are a lot more willing and open to help persons who they know genuinely have a passion and they're willing to work, because everyone wants to be a part of something that's winning, and they want to be a part of that growth stage. They want to have those conversations. Remember when, and I think as an entrepreneur and as a small business owner, sometimes we get intimidated. Trust me, they're just as in awe of us as we are of them, because they're like, you do that, every single day. And we just have to be confident and ask for what we want, and know that if it no comes first, try again and again and again, and then probably even later down, it will work out.
So Kimala, though, I mean, I hear you. You started out, you got your advisory board, you had financial statements. No, you are an advertising and production company. And when you look at the stock exchange, you really don't see your type of company, all over the stock exchange. What make you think you could have list on the stock exchange? One, and what was the process you went through to move from, we are a production company, but we're going on the stock exchange? Tell us about that process.
So mindset is very important, and I always knew that I wanted to build an empire. I just happened to be in advertising, and I'm just happened to be passionate about filmmaking, content creation, all things having to do with marketing. The thing about it is that when you think about taking the business to the next level, you look and you say, okay, what is it that I want? Our vision is to be the #1 advertising agency and production company in the region, recognized, respected internationally. So when I looked at that, I said, okay, well, what does that mean? It means that we have to level up, for one. And that means that I'm going to need a team, both at the board level, to give me not only that strategic guidance, but hold me accountable. We're going to need some capital to grow and do all the big things and the plans that we have. And of course, that tax break is great because that's money to put back into the company. Now, when I was looking at my board of directors, right, I said to myself, here is the vision of the company. Who are the persons that can help me to get to that point? What are the various skill sets that I need? Now, I said regional, and then I also said to be recognized internationally and all that. So regional means regional expansion. So our chairman, Stephen Gooden, who is the CEO of Capital Markets, they've been expanding, so he has that expertise as well as with merger and acquisition. Then there was this lady I met that, just blew me away with her energy. And she just happened to be an attorney as well as head of HR at the time, Rochelle Cameron. So I approached Rochelle and I said, because you would have checked off 2 boxes. We're in the people business. We manage people every day. Our assets walk out of our company every day. So we have to ensure that we have strategies in place to retain and to attract, as well as legal is important. We're in, as far as IP and of course being listed, that became even more of an importance. Maxine Waters, top producer. Again, we want to be the best. We are learning from the best. And Douglas Linda, as I said, process innovation. Mikey Bennett, my father, who has been my advisor all my life and is there to guide me on a personal as well as a professional level. And of course, the real MVP, Tashara Lee Johnson, the future of the lab. She's our chief operating officer and we're learning together, so we're there in that boardroom understanding. So there's continuity, there's business continuity. So listing for me was the next step. It was a bit daunting. I'll never forget our very first board meeting when you went through all the things and you're like, you never know it's all of that. And I said, I had an idea, but just a little sweaty now. I said, level up. You got this. This is what you want. This is what it's made of. And the board is really there to protect the shareholders, the minority shareholders, and the larger shareholders, to just ensure that all decisions that are being made are in the best interest of the company. And I just want to say one other thing. As a board, we meet and have our strategic retreats. And I'm telling you, it is that opportunity where you get to step back and look at what this business is going to look like within the next couple of years. And after every retreat, I am scared, which is great, because it's that discomfort that you're like, yeah man, ready. But then while it's daunting, it's attainable. So then I am given all this advice, I'm given this perspective that then now allows me to go and say, you know what? I'm not thinking big enough. And that's what the board does. It pushes you every time, because as a CEO, every now and again you're getting and you're managing, you have to manage everything. So it's not just about the bigger vision, but you're managing the day-to-day. So I'm just like, you can't say that. And you don't know what's happening at the lab on a day-to-day basis. But when you are able to step back and you do your one-on-one calls with your board of directors, for different matters, you then realize that you have the support and you have the know-how, and you just go. Can't do it by yourself.
I think that is such an important point to me, because we'll have micro businesses that have the vision of where they want to go, and as the business grows to the different levels, sometimes CEOs get a little concerned, is the word I'll use, that the board is going to stymie their growth because they're going to put too much rules on them. And corporate governance is like this albatross over them that's going to stop that kind of creativity and innovation. But based on what you're saying, can you describe for us how actually that corporate governance, having those structures in place, actually facilitate the growth of the business?
It does, because remember, when you are the CEO, you don't have anybody to really answer to. You're just doing your thing. So when you have who you going to answer to if you're the owner and you're the CEO? When you have your board, now human nature, you don't want to look stupid. So you're going to, even if it means the night before, you're going to put something together. So it's in your best interest to have that framework. And remember, the board's responsibility, as you heard earlier, is to protect the company. It's the best interest of the company. So if we're in a space and you're saying, what does this business look like in 5 years? You, as a CEO, you may be like, well, I make money now, so make we just go with this. No, the board is saying, but what does this business look like in 5 years? And what are the plans and the strategies and the structure, whether the governance structure, the org structure, whatever structure that needs to be in place to facilitate this growth. Because you're not running a business for just today. You are running this business to ensure that it's sustainable. And especially as a publicly listed company, when my son Liam grows up, he should be like, what is this? This company is massive, but he can always understand what started it. And it was in the DNA, it was that framework from the get-go that I said, I need my financial statements. I will figure it out as we go along, but I want to ensure that when I am ready to move, these things are not holding me back.
Oh, so you mentioned DNA, and we talk about mindset and that constant vision of building an empire. And for those businesses that are micro businesses, who may have pivoted during COVID and are wondering, what are my next steps? I need you to leave them with some words of encouragement based on where you are coming from and how you have had to adjust the business as you've gone on. What is that almost fire in your belly that's coupled with the right way of doing things to get that vision to come to life?
Right. So I think as long as there is life, there's opportunity. And my mantra is success is when preparation meets opportunity. Some people say luck, I say success. And I think that even in this time, there are a lot of opportunities. They say that with every crisis, there's an opportunity, and it's true. But we have to be prepared to look and see what is it that I could be doing or can be doing to take this business to the next level in spite of what is happening around us. When COVID hit, everybody's first inclination was like, oh God, this industry is going to shut down, that industry is going to shut down. We prepared ourselves to say, okay, well, if the country shuts down, what can we do? What service is it that people are going to want more of? What is it that people are leaning more towards? Of what skill sets do we need to learn? And it doesn't mean if you don't have the money, should you be doing an online course now to get up to speed with something? Should you be looking and saying, okay, well, I can't hire that person now, but I am going to look to see who I need to recruit when it's time that I can actually get that person. So I think it's really about being optimistic, even in spite of all that's happening, to know that, listen, as long as there is life, there is opportunity, and then being prepared and willing to put in the work. Because just thinking about it and not putting in the work is really not going to materialize anything.
So, Kimala, you have also published 3 manuals: Starting a Business in Jamaica, Young Entrepreneur's Handbook, and Let's Talk Money. And I know that as our viewers are watching this episode, and we're going to have bring you back, they're saying, where do we find these manuals?
So the Young Entrepreneur's Handbook, you can call the office 908-4080. We have those. Starting a Business in Jamaica, unfortunately, we're updating it. So we're working on the 2nd edition because so much has changed. And I mean, Starting a Business in Jamaica came out of just my obsession also with doing things the right way in business, but recognizing how better now. But nothing beats a step-by-step guide on how to do it from someone who has done it. So we're working on that, and I'm really hoping to have this out by January next year. But in the meantime, I'm also working on a series called Becoming CEO, which I will give you more information for you to pass on when that comes out.
Oh, thank you so much. Kimala, this has been such an energizing discussion. And as you say, this whole concept of corporate governance, because the word kind of sounds heavy, but at the end of the day,
Heavy,
it's a
heavy.
mindset of doing things the right way.
Absolutely.
Everyone you say corporate governance, but it is doing the right way. And when you couple that with the vision of where you go, where your business is going, when you start doing it from the get-go, you're able to seize the opportunities. You were able to get those bank loans when you needed it to buy property because you already had everything that you needed and you weren't scurrying around to try and put these things together. So thank you very much for joining us today, and we're looking forward to having you again on podcast. Thanks a lot, Kimala. So viewers, we would have just heard from Kimala Bennett. Chris, I see a comment. Love that idea on the new book. And you thought corporate governance wasn't energetic and energizing and a subject that is very important for you to wrap your minds around. So if both of our presenters talked about doing things the right way, including doing things the right way as a part of the DNA of your business, putting your business always in that position to seize opportunities. We actually have done a poll, and one of the questions we ask is, does your company have a board of directors? 33% responded yes, and 67% responded no. And what you would have heard is that whether or not you have a board of directors where you're the one director that's notified to the company's office, you may be considering having an advisory board, a group of persons that's helping you with their competencies to take the business to the next level. So vision does not happen without action, putting the things in place. And our next guest is Greta Boggs, who is interim CEO and PSOJ chair of the PSOJ Corporate Governance Committee. And Greta has been one of the early advocates for corporate governance. She has over the past 20 years been working with both private and public sector entities in successfully developing directors' tools to support strategic board oversight and presenting results-oriented corporate governance programs. She's currently the interim CEO of the PSOJ, and she is chair. I think she's been chair of the PSOJ Corporate Governance Committee for quite some time and done phenomenal work in creating the PSOJ code, corporate governance code. So we have come a long way with corporate governance, with Greta Boggs actually doing a lot of that direction. Greta has also She's the first female CEO of the Combined Private Sector Association, and she was Senior Director of Corporate Affairs and External Communications for J. Ray and Neville Limited. So Greta has really done the gamut of corporate governance. She has worked in corporations. She actually understands corporate governance in action. And Greta, today, thank you very much for joining us. We know you had a long day today.
It's another one of those days, but thank you so much for having me, Rochelle. And I mean, I am just so inspired by the conversation that you just had with Kimala. I mean, it's so inspiring to see small businesses who actually started out with governance at the beginning. Because if that's one thing, one lesson that we should say to all our listeners is start at the beginning. That's what governance is really. Start it at the beginning when you're starting the company.
And Greta, you have always been that proponent of, let's not wait till we get to a certain size. Let's start at the beginning. And over the years, you would have seen corporate governance from the perspective of no corporate governance structures to corporate governance code. Now, with more vigorous corporate governance, what changes have you seen in the business environment? How has it actually led to more success in the business environment? And has it actually led to more success in the business environment?
That's a very interesting question, Rochelle, because one of the things that we've seen over the years, when we started this journey just like Kimala. It's really a journey. And there were many inside the corporate sector that said, this corporate governance, these structures I don't want us to put in place. No, it really doesn't make much sense, really. We have to make money. That's what we have to make. And it took a while for us to engage them to say, governance is really about how you make the money, how you make the profits. It's really all about the how. So how you put things, the structures that you put in place to support that vision, that long-term vision that you have. How corporate governance is not going to help you to get there, how you want to get there. So it's something that you have to start at the beginning with. It's something that it has to be in your DNA. It's something that with that vision, this will support you to achieve your objective. But one of the things we found is, and especially with small to medium-sized businesses, that it's only when they started to borrow money. Well, I forgot to the bank. Oh, but the bank want to know this. Or what I should say is, when I want to go to the auntie, me need you to lend me No, I don't lend you $1 million like that. What is your structure? What is your succession? How is this business going to operate? And if we could just break down corporate governance to those simple buckets that we have, starting at the beginning, documentation, then people would start to see that corporate governance is not this big, heavy topic. It's really just all about how we do the things that we do.
And documentation is, in fact, one of the things that you talk about a lot. And in terms of documentation as just even a foundation with how you do things, what when you talk about documentation, what do you mean by that? What are we supposed to be documenting as business people?
Well, I would like to look at that probably. Let's put that in 3 different buckets. So when you start your business, right, you're normally starting with your creative idea, right? You're an entrepreneur. I'm excited about this particular idea. But God forbid something happened to you. You need to document the process for that idea, because today you have an order for one of whatever that service is. But down the road, you have an order for 100. You alone more than likely can't make that 100 or deliver that 100. So you have to document the process to get others on board to support you. So the documentation starts at that bucket in terms of the ideas. Then secondly, when you sell the product, you have to generate an invoice, right? And there might be a receivable. So you have to start to document from the financial perspective. How is this going to work? So I have to know, wait, I'm really making some money here. When I sell this product for this, have I taken all my costs into consideration? So and that will help you to be able to say, okay, I really made a profit from this particular sale. And then so you're looking at the documentation of your financials. And then the third bucket is that you have to think about where you want to go, and you have to document that, because that's going to be a part of your DNA as to why is it I'm in business. So I would say you kind of have to document your process, because you have to document in terms of what it is that you're doing, the service that you're selling, and document the financial part, and of course that vision. And that vision that you have that complements the other buckets, that vision would also be supported by your board, because your board is going to engage you, and they're going to support, and they're going to guide you. They're the ones who are going to ask you some tough questions, but it's those tough questions that's going to get you there where you want to go.
And I'm glad you just mentioned board, because we had a poll just a moment ago, and the question was, in your opinion, what is the most important role of a board of directors? 50% of our respondents said advisory role, 50% said oversight, and none said support. So in terms of from where you sit, what are the key roles of your board of directors?
So the role of the board, right, is really to provide that oversight. The role of the board is not to take control of your business, right? They have, and I'm sure Camille would have mentioned, they have some fiduciary responsibilities as directors. But the value of that board really is to ask what I like to start with saying, ask me the stupid question, ask the questions, test what you're putting there, you know, so that you know that the road you're going down is a road that, yeah, others have actually gone through, questioned you. You have actually had to make some little detours based on the type of questions that have been asked, but they're really there to provide that oversight for you, to help to guide you, to help to support you. The board also, especially in our context and for small and medium-sized business, your board is there to open doors for you. They're there to open doors for you. So when I heard Kimala talking about, boy, persistence, yeah, persistence too, because you have to be persistent to get the right person on your board. And sometimes, you know, it doesn't make sense you fight to get the top name person. What you really want to get is the person who is going to add value to your discussions, value to your particular business. And there are many doors that that person can open for you also as small business. So that is another very key thing when we talk about your board, that networking and opening of doors. The other thing is when we look for a board and what our board is going to do is they're also going to provide what I like to call or term entrepreneurial leadership, right? So we're also going to say this is like our business, right? I want to see this business do well. They're going to feed on your passion also, right? And we're going to help you to get to where you want. They buy into this particular vision that you have. So I think that while the board is there to provide oversight, and yeah, they're not there to take over your business, but they're just there to support you. They're there to guide you. They're there to open doors for you. You're looking for people with agile minds who can, who think outside of the box. Yes. Outside of the box for your own business.
And I'm just seeing a note here from Christopher Record. Jana, I'm going to answer your question shortly. Christopher says the most important role is to make sure you have the right CEO. And I'm glad Chris raised that role, because sometimes too, when we have our business, we had our idea, come up with our business is now kind of taking off and we pull a board together. Sometimes as business people, one, we're afraid that the board is going to question us, bother us. And this whole concept of accountability, because you know the business is your baby, so you almost don't want anybody questioning your baby. Can you comment on that for me, please?
And that's such a common fear. It's a fear, I think, that a lot of businesses have. And I mean, Chris is right when he talks about a CEO. That's something that I always say to them. You have to have the right CEO for the right time. But what you find is that a lot of small business are very creative persons. They're very entrepreneurial spirit. And that is good. But what you might find is that you might need someone else to work with you who to complement that strength. So again, as I listen to Kimala, and she has that complement of another person who has a complementing strength that she doesn't have to support the business. So it's all, again, one bottom line, trust.
Yes.
Because as an entrepreneur, you have to trust who you put on your board too. I mean, I remember my days in banking. A lot of people used to say, no, I'm not taking my idea to the bank, let me know, because they're not giving them money, and then you see the same idea down the road. We have to build trust and confidence in persons who we actually want to sit on our board. And we're much more mature than that now, right? Yeah. Because what we do is that we want to make sure we're having persons who are going to add value. We're going to add value to your vision. We want to take you there. We want to be a part of that success. Success breeds success. We want to be a part of a successful business. So the point is that you want to make sure that when you ask that person to sit on there, you have that confidence also in them. Exactly. And that confidence is for them to work with you, to be a part of your vision, and we're going to support you. You can call me any other night. I'm going to be here to test that question you have, to work it through with you, because we're in this together.
Okay, thank you for that, Greta. Greta, before we go, because I'm just thinking back to listening to you doing various presentations over the years and seeing just how far corporate governance has reached in Jamaica. One, where do you still expect us to be going as a country with how we view corporate governance? And what final words do you want to leave with our viewers on the importance of these structures, not seeing them as this albatross over them, but that vehicle of success?
I recall that corporate governance in Jamaica really started in 2001. When we had very, very high levels of corruption in the public sector in particular, and it came out of this Thorburn report. And within the private sector themselves, corporate governance actually got great traction in the early 2000s because people started to recognize that investors, people who were going to invest in your companies, they were willing to pay a premium if you would just have good corporate governance in there. So we have come a long way, and we've come that way supported a lot also by the stock exchange, because the stock exchange also implemented in 2010 their own corporate governance rule for all listed companies. So if, as a small and a medium business, if you're thinking about going on the junior market, and I hope that's where everybody is working towards, you have certain corporate governance requirements that you have to have in place. But we have evolved since 2002. We have evolved with the codes at the PSOJ. We have played a role in developing codes that can help to guide you. We have actually played a role also in developing a toolkit. So as we talk about, well, when you have your board, what does your board do? We have a tool in terms of what does a charter look like, so you can document what are some of the responsibilities of the board. If you're going on a junior market, you have to have an audit committee. We say here is what a framework of what a terms of reference look like. So we continue to evolve, and now we have evolved to the stage where we recognize persons who are actually practicing good corporate governance. I mean, a part of the research that I'm doing, which is very interesting, I must tell you, Rochelle, when I looked at annual reports of listed companies in the late 1990s, and I compared them to before 2010, and I compare them to now, it's a far cry in terms of corporate governance. As a matter of fact, we wouldn't get any information about what is happening other than who the directors were, a balance sheet and a profit and loss, and that's it. Don't ask me any more questions. But once you start to get other people start to invest in your company, people want to know what's happening in your company. So you're going to be held accountable. And that accountability comes, of course, through transparency. And that transparency is through the information that you have to provide. So we have started the journey. We have a way to go, but believe me, we have achieved a lot to know. And we are going on that journey further, because Jamaica needs good governance, both in the private and in the public sector. And we have started the journey.
So, Greta, the toolkits that you have mentioned, they're available on the PSOJ website?
We are updating them for them to be available on the website. Currently, no, we actually have them on hard copies, but we're going to be scanning and putting them on there. But we're actually upgrading our new corporate governance code. What we're doing is we're building out a code that will actually look at corporate governance for listed companies, corporate governance for private companies, corporate governance for MSMEs, corporate governance for nonprofits, and also for family business. Because what we do realize, and we're very conscious of the fact that there's a continuum of businesses in terms of legal type and also in terms of size. So while some of the basic practices are going to be constant, there are various idiosyncrasies for each particular area. So that's actually what we're working on now, and hope to have that completed by the end of the year. And we update our toolkit to complement that, so that persons have information available, readily available, to document or help with the documentation from a governance perspective.
And I see some commendations here. Chris Record is mentioned that most of the TTEC board members have graduated from the Greta Boggs led JSC PSOJ corporate governance course. I know recently there was a webinar. I'm seeing Dr. Smith, who attended that webinar. Viewers can look out on the PSOJ website, and we'll also be announcing on COVIDCASTJA when additional corporate governance courses are coming on. The recently held webinar, extremely comprehensive, and we're hoping to see that staged again, Greta. Yes. And that was for MSMEs.
Right, and we're really focusing on that particular sector because that is the growth sector of our nation, especially in these unprecedented times. And those are the people that we really want to hold their hands and work with them. And we're here to support you. I just want to say one other thing, because one of the challenges that I think you asked, Kimala, that, I mean, where do you go and find directors? And what was just said a while ago by Chris is that we train persons to become directors. So we actually have a website that is on the Jamaica Stock Exchange and also the PSOJ, with a number of individuals who have been trained to become directors and who say they're willing to serve. So that's another place that SMEs can go to say, oh, this particular person is interested. Let me have a conversation. And of course, they have to buy your vision, and you have to be persistent with it also.
And you have to have to sell.
Yes, absolutely. So I mean, that is something we're making available to not just corporate Jamaica, but to SMEs in particular. These are individuals who have already indicated that we are willing to assist, to sit on boards. We have been trained in governance, so we can help you. We can dialogue with you.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Greta. Always a pleasure. It has really been phenomenal to see the journey of corporate governance in Jamaica and what a significant difference it has made to our climate, to our entire business climate, both on the private and the public sector. Corporate governance committees, corporate governance being discussed just as a part of how we do business. So sometimes we don't even call it corporate governance. It's just that we're doing things the right way. So continue your phenomenal work. I must point out that Jana said earlier, very excited to hear from this phenomenal and accomplished lady. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Jana. And it's really been a pleasure. And it's just exciting to see the transformation that's taking place with governance. Because as we all say, it's really just how you do it and start from the beginning. How you make your profits, how you do your business.
Thank you so much, Greta. Now, if you want to get some more information and you're wondering, Jana asked, where do I get templates? Now, for today's episode, there is a memo available. Please email us at sme@psoj.org. Now, not only do we provide much of this information, we also have links at the back of the memo to all types of toolkits and guidelines. In addition, you can look out for a show that we will be doing very shortly that is looking at registration, formalization, compliance in your business. And On smallbusinessportal.com, resources are going to be uploaded in short order that will help you to understand how you register your business, how do you keep compliant with the company's office, how do you keep compliant with the tax authority. So we are hearing from you. We're ensuring too that the documentation, the templates are available, the checklist and the guidelines. Please also visit our PSOJ website. Look out for more training on corporate governance. And today, we're no longer seeing corporate governance as an albatross, as a burden. We're seeing it as a vehicle of success. It's a mindset of taking vision to success by doing things the right way, not in the middle of things, the right way from the very beginning. Thank you very much for joining us for COVIDCASTJA. We're asking you to join us again next week at 7:30. Please comment, share, visit smallbusinessportal.com, visit the PSOJ website. We have a very exciting episode coming up on November 5th. We're going to have the conversation, understanding the baseline, setting that baseline for living with COVID. Cannot be missed. The episodes that are coming up, these are episodes that will help you with the success of your business, because we are committed to providing with you with the tools for the success of your business. So see you again next week. Walk good, comment, share, tell a friend, join us again. See you next week. So you have a great idea to start a business, but you don't know where to start. We completely understand. You have a lot of questions and almost no answers. Smallbusinessportal.com is here to help. At smallbusinessportal.com, you gain access to information on loans, grants, and investment opportunities from verified financial institutions. Guess what you also get? Useful business tips, access to training. All these services combine to make your business idea into a reality. Start your journey today at smallbusinessportal.com.